I'm a 37-year-old man, and I've been married to Megan, who's 32, for around 2.5 years now. It's hard to pinpoint one exact moment that explains how things ended up the way they did, but I suspect it all started to unravel after a frustrating phone call one evening. I was in the living room, catching up on the football highlights I'd missed from the day before, when Megan's phone began ringing. Irritated by the interruption, I grabbed her phone and took it to her in the kitchen, asking her to take care of it so I could get back to my game. But then, almost immediately, the phone rang again, and I could tell she was gearing up to deal with whoever was calling. Since we both worked in the corporate world, Megan always had this rule about not letting work creep into our home life. She valued keeping work and personal time separate, insisting that privacy mattered for both of us. She made it a point not to answer work calls on weekends, handling urgent issues through email if necessary. As I started to walk away from the kitchen, half expecting her to blow up over the call, she surprised me by going quiet instead, her expression shifting. It wasn't until dinner that she finally told me what the call was about. "They're transferring us out of state," she said. "A transfer? For what? And to where?" I asked, though even as I said it, I began piecing things together. I had heard the company talk about expansion plans before, and now it seemed that the board wanted to send employees to manage this new branch's setup, Megan explained. I knew how these transfers typically went, but usually they didn't move married employees without getting their consent. And it was clear that Megan hadn't exactly volunteered for this. I suggested she turn it down, but she told me it came with a promotion, the very one she'd been striving for her entire career. The picture was beginning to come together. Megan was driven, and I admired that in her. Over the past year, she'd gone above and beyond to secure this promotion, putting in extra hours, volunteering for projects, and ensuring her team of 7 ran like a well-oiled machine. Now, all that hard work was finally paying off, though not quite how we'd imagined. The promotion would double her salary, with an array of perks and benefits. But for Megan, it was never about just the money. Her sights were set on climbing the corporate ladder. "What do you think I should do?" she asked. All I could manage was, "It's not your fault, but it sure does put me in a tough spot." I was faced with 2 clear options. I could ask her to turn down the transfer and let go of the promotion, or I could support her fully, giving my blessing for her to chase the opportunity she'd worked so tirelessly to earn. In my mind, I figured that long-distance marriages could still work. I hadn't seen many examples personally, but surely they existed, right? Wanting to be encouraging and not to hold her back, I told her, "I'll stand by your decision. Whatever you choose, we'll find a way to make it work." I now regret those words deeply. She was overjoyed, and at that moment, I thought I'd made the right call. I convinced myself that if people could keep marriages alive during lengthy business trips, spending months away from their families and still making it work, we could do the same. Looking back, though, I realized she didn't leave much room for me to say no. If I'd been honest and asked her to pass on the job, she might have considered it, but it would have come at a cost, likely putting our marriage at risk. I didn't want that. I also hated the idea of her being so far away, but if our relationship was on the line, letting her go seemed like the lesser evil. Felt like the only reasonable choice. If I found myself in the same position today, I'm honestly not sure I'd choose any differently. That evening, she couldn't thank me enough for being so understanding, but I couldn't shake a feeling of resentment that lingered beneath the surface. It dawned on me that she had maneuvered me into a decision that ultimately served her interests. I felt like I'd been played, but her excitement after sorting out the travel arrangements seemed so genuine. We talked at length about how to make our marriage work across the distance. Of course, we agreed to call each other every day to stay connected and share the little details of our lives. Infidelity never even crossed my mind. I was certain Megan's dedication to her career wouldn't leave room for anything else. Her company promised her 5 days off every month, which reassured her as she headed to the airport, telling me, "It'll work." I didn't realize then that, in a way, my marriage ended the moment she boarded that plane. All long-distance relationships seem to start off with good intentions. Daily calls, constant updates. I even bought her a Bluetooth earpiece so we could talk while she worked. For the first 2 months, everything seemed to be falling into place. We were on the phone more often, and I was actually learning more about her life than I had when we were living under the same roof. For a while, it almost felt like I'd made the right choice, putting her ambition ahead of my own needs. I thought we were doing fine, at least until 2 months ago. One morning, Megan called to let me know she'd be canceling her upcoming trip back to Michigan. Her company's performance over the past 3 months had been lackluster, and she needed to recruit more capable people in administrative roles to help lighten her workload. I understood. I was on the verge of closing a major deal myself, one that would give me much more flexibility. The payout for this deal was substantial, worth millions, which would finally allow me to carve out more time to spend with her. Waiting a few more days to surprise her felt small compared to the quality time I was planning. I didn't mention the deal to her, hoping to make it a pleasant surprise, so I focused intently on my work, avoiding any distractions. During that period, we didn't talk on the phone, marking the longest stretch we'd gone without a call. We texted each other on WhatsApp, but we were both too busy for any real conversations. I'm sharing all of this because recently, a mutual friend accused me of being distant and manipulative after learning what had happened. To me, I am neither of those things. If anything, the big deal was finally about to close, and everything was nearly in place. This deal was monumental. It would secure my family's financial future indefinitely. It was with the very first client I'd ever closed, and it would place me among the wealthiest 10% in America. That evening, as I waited for the final confirmation, I had to resist the urge to call Megan. I wanted so badly to share the incredible news and tell her how this would change our lives. Instead, I decided to plan a surprise vacation for us, covering everything from flights and hotels to meals and sightseeing. While scrolling through WhatsApp, though, I noticed her latest story, a photo of her hugging a man named Liam. He had dark hair, blue eyes, and looked to be in his mid-30s. Liam had been her first hire when she started at her new job. He understood the business inside and out. She'd captioned the picture with the words, "Dark times reveal angels." That should have been my warning sign, a cue that something wasn't right. But I held off, thinking I'd wait to share the big news. I booked a flight to California to surprise her, determined to see her face when she heard about the deal. I called her Michigan office to check on her schedule and set up the surprise. Unfortunately, a mutual friend who worked as the receptionist there helped me keep my arrival under wraps. During the flight, I kept picturing how Megan would react when I told her everything. I headed straight to her office from the airport, eager to take her out to dinner and share the big news. But when I got there, I was told she hadn't come in that day. So, I grabbed an Uber to the address I'd been given, curious why the receptionist seemed surprised to learn Megan was married. I brushed it off, thinking it was just Megan being her usual private self about our relationship. After climbing 4 flights of stairs, I stood outside her apartment door, a bouquet of flowers hidden behind my back. Just as I was about to knock, I heard her moan, followed by a man's voice saying, "Keep going." My heart dropped. It had taken only 5.5 months for her to betray me. Fury rose within me, almost driving me to act impulsively, but I forced myself to stay silent. I left her apartment and went back to her office, asking the receptionist not to mention my visit, even slipping her a $1 tip for her trouble. I then checked into a nearby hotel, determined to keep an eye on Megan. Over the next week, I followed her in a rental car, and she remained oblivious. Her routine was predictable. Between work, yoga, and her apartment, tracking her movements became all too easy. This was how I confirmed she was spending a lot of time with Liam, and it didn't take long to realize he was the man she was cheating with. I tried calling and messaging her during this period, but she kept brushing me off, claiming work was overwhelming and that she needed space to focus on her career. That was when I decided I'd had enough. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me any longer. I prepared divorce papers and waited for her and Liam to return to her apartment. They seemed to spend most of their time in bed because, as soon as I got to her door, all I could hear were their moans and gasps. I unlocked the door quietly and stepped into the bedroom, recording everything with my phone. Watching it unfold was disgusting, but I kept the recording going for a full minute before revealing myself. In that instant, as she scrambled to cover herself, I felt an odd sense of empowerment, though it was painful and heartbreaking. The look on her face when I told her I'd share the video with her family and colleagues unless she signed the divorce papers justified everything. She begged for forgiveness, saying she'd resign and go to therapy, but I couldn't bear to look at her. Who would? Every time I saw her, all I could picture was her and Liam together, and the thought made me sick to my stomach. Her requests were absurd, and I refused to even consider them. When she eventually dropped off the signed divorce papers, she mentioned that she'd resigned from her job. Still, I went ahead and sent the video to her parents. They deserved to see the person their daughter had become. Based on a few things I'd heard, it seemed clear she had already checked out of our marriage long before she took the job. She probably wanted this for a while and may have been seeing someone else well before I found out. She had manipulated me into supporting the job move, leaving me with no real say in the matter. Decisions that major, affecting an entire family, shouldn't be made unilaterally like that. It's now been 5 months since the divorce, and I thought I'd share an update. Shortly after everything fell apart, I learned that my wife had moved to another state to head her company's new branch and began an affair with a coworker, a discovery I made during my surprise visit. After the divorce, I took some time to gather myself and even went on a week-long trip to the Dominican Republic, which was fantastic, by the way. Then, one evening, I got a notification on Reddit about my original post. When I first wrote it, I was just venting, trying to get out some of the anger, frustration, and disgust I felt. Unexpectedly, it had gained a surprising amount of attention. As I read through the comments, one particularly resonated with me. It was from someone who had faced a similar situation a few years back. He expressed his own misery over not feeling like he'd achieved enough revenge to truly satisfy his spirit. It might sound strange, especially since many people seemed perfectly content with me merely exposing her infidelity to her parents and getting her fired. While it was somewhat gratifying to see her relationship with her parents deteriorate because of that video, it also felt like I hadn't really accomplished much. The last I heard, she was staying in a motel and working at a nightclub, which, in a twisted way, seemed fitting for someone like her. About 3 weeks after I returned from the Dominican Republic, she appeared at my door, begging for forgiveness and asking for another chance. It was quite a spectacle. Seeing her with puffy, bloodshot eyes, either from crying or dealing with some other issues. Regardless, her state didn't concern me much. She was already an emotional mess. My attention shifted to the man she had cheated on me with, Liam. I let her in, and she seemed to think I was having a change of heart about the divorce. Almost immediately, she started to justify her actions, insisting that she never believed I would actually go through with it. She even claimed that she had lost her parents' respect and insisted that I had already punished her enough. I decided to put her to the test by asking her a specific question. Deep down, I knew she would fail, but I wanted to confirm it for myself. She didn't disappoint. When I asked how many times it had happened, she responded with 1, swearing it was the truth. After that, it was hard to believe anything that came out of her mouth. My dad used to say it's nearly impossible to look someone in the eye and lie to them, but she proved him wrong. I wasn't exactly sure how many times they had been together, but I had a rough idea of when it had all begun. And it definitely wasn't a one-time thing. I was skeptical, and if I hadn't followed her around for the first 2 weeks after I got to Michigan, or heard her moaning in her room on the very day I arrived, I might have fallen for her lies. Her desire for a private life no longer held any weight. As for Liam, I later found out he was a married man, which only fueled my anger. I realized I had the opportunity to get revenge on him as well. I didn't need a mirror to tell me that my acting skills were far from flawless, but she bought it, thinking I was genuinely considering reconciliation. I told her I needed time to think, and then I immediately sent the video to everyone who knew her, including her colleague at the office. My first step was to book a ticket to Michigan, so I could expose Liam's married life using the information I gathered from Megan. I rented an apartment near his place to keep an eye on him while I waited to release the videos of his affairs with my ex-wife. During this time, I also observed his wife, Clara. She was beautiful, with blonde hair, gray eyes, and an enchanting smile. Initially, my plan was to seduce her and revel in the fallout for her husband, but my feelings unexpectedly shifted. Clara turned out to be a kind and genuine person, and we developed a close friendship. I even began spending less time focusing on Liam for a while. Through our conversations, I learned that Liam had lost his job and was frantically job hunting, trying to avoid raising any suspicion with Clara. She also confided in me about her marital struggles, mentioning how her husband had barely paid attention to her until recently. Unbeknownst to her, this information provided me with the leverage I needed. I revealed the truth to Clara and showed her the haunting video that had been plaguing my dreams. She was quickly convinced, and we devised a plan for her to confront Liam. Although I wasn't there to witness it, I made sure he understood that I was behind his misfortunes. The last I heard, he was facing deportation. Now, I can honestly say I feel a sense of satisfaction. Letters were dispatched to a range of individuals, including family members, friends, homemakers, professionals, factory workers, doctors, lawyers, educators, priests, preachers, and even Facebook acquaintances. The common link among them was their connection to Clara Lewis or Lucas Carter. The message you are about to read is from Oliver Lewis, Clara's husband, as well as your daughter, sister, friend, and coworker. I understand that many of you may not know me, and I appreciate you taking the time to read this. I have some information regarding my beloved wife and her friend, details that some of you might already be aware of or suspect. I've decided to eliminate any uncertainty and share what I know. I recognize that this may not sit well with many of you. Some might even harbor resentment toward me or dislike me altogether. Nevertheless, I am ready to face the consequences of my actions. Please refer to the first attachment, which contains a photo of Clara and Ethan caught in a passionate kiss. The caption reads, "Foreplay." This image was taken 3 months ago at her company picnic. They thought they were being discreet, but a friend of mine, who was looking for his children at the time, witnessed the incident. He took some pictures and shared them with me, thinking I might find them useful. That's what a true friend does. I must confess that I became the quintessential insecure husband after that revelation. I felt compelled to uncover every detail, even if it meant enduring pain. And it did hurt. Our vows to each other and to God, made in front of friends and family, were shattered by lust. I hope it was not love. I continuously torment myself with the question of why. Could it be because I left her alone for long stretches while I was supposedly engaged in covert operations with the Navy SEALs? No, wait, I never served in the military, and the only SEALs I know are the ones basking in the sun at the harbor. Could it be because I was away for work? That doesn't seem right. I rarely go on business trips and hardly ever work overtime. I usually arrive home no later than 5:30 each evening. Perhaps it was because I abandoned all my hobbies, leaving her and the kids to fend for themselves while I enjoyed my own pursuits, missing birthdays, holidays, and anniversaries? No, that's not it. My sole hobby was making her happy. She seemed to appreciate the little surprise gifts and weekend getaways, often needing to monitor me to ensure I didn't go overboard with those gestures. Thankfully, we never had the chance to have children. I was neither mentally nor physically tough on her. I didn't neglect her and always made sure she felt my love. I devoted as much time to her as I could. It was fortunate that she had a job. Otherwise, she wouldn't have had the opportunity to be with Ethan. The fact that he was her boss made their secret meetings during the day all too convenient. I was taken aback when I finally obtained concrete evidence of their affair. It came at a bit of a cost, possibly even skirting the boundaries of legality, but I had no intention of using it in court. Instead, I chose to bring the issue to the court of public opinion. This evidence clearly demonstrated their infidelity. Now, I must warn you that the following attachments are explicit. Please refrain from opening them if you believe they might offend you. The first image depicted a top-down shot of Clara gazing up at Ethan with affection, captioned, "She's really good at this." The second set of images showcased them in bed, their faces alight with desire and happiness, with the caption reading, "What she didn't do for me." I apologize if this offends anyone, but I felt it was necessary to eliminate all doubt. Why am I sharing these pictures? Because I have filed for divorce. Many of her friends have questioned my decision, asking if I am certain, if it's a mistake, if we should see a counselor, if she is truly sorry, if it won't happen again, or if we should simply try to forget the whole thing. Her mother, whom I cherished as my own, has not attempted to sway my decision. Her father, A man I respect but never truly loved will likely try to reason with me. I apologize for dragging all of you into this situation. My greatest wish is for you to leave me alone. This matter is primarily between my wife and me. Well, not entirely, it also involves Ethan. I owe a sincere apology to his wife, Sunny. You didn't deserve to go through this, nor did your two children, who are, 8 and 5 now. Perhaps he will change, and you can find it in your heart to forgive him. Ultimately, that choice is yours. I also want to extend my apologies to his company and its senior management for involving them in the impending lawsuit. After all, their meetings occurred in the office, and I believe the support staff is now aware of why there is a couch in his workspace. Just a suggestion. If you're planning to give that couch to someone else, make sure it is thoroughly cleaned first. While I may not be able to use these pictures in court, my attorney can gather statements from their coworkers. I highly doubt anyone will take responsibility for the company's actions. In any case, many individuals will face challenging times ahead. To sum it up, here's why I decided to handle this situation in this manner. To eliminate all uncertainties and avoid wasting any more time. After all, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Isn't it? Clara is about to be served with divorce papers, and it should happen any moment now. I will attempt to start a new life without her. Clara, I'm truly sorry if I couldn't meet your needs. If, from the very beginning, you had confided in me about your feelings for someone else and decided to leave, it would have hurt me deeply, but I would have respected your decision. Instead, you chose to have your cake and eat it too. Well, the cake is gone, Clara. I am certain you will come to regret your choices, or perhaps not. Maybe you feel a sense of relief now that I have discovered the truth, allowing you and your lover to live as you please. It is over between us. I have moved out, taken only what I needed, and everything else is yours. From this point forward, all communication will go through my lawyer, and I have made up my mind never to speak to you again. I do not want explanations. I do not want to know why. I refuse to entertain any discussions about second chances, as I will not even consider them. Go ahead, Clara. Leave me be. The entire office was thrown into chaos when Clara let out a piercing scream and fainted at her desk after seeing a picture of Ethan with a knife stabbed through it. Her coworkers rushed to her aid, and soon, the news began to spread like wildfire. An email containing the shocking information had been discovered by one of the administrators, causing work to come to a near standstill. Ethan was completely oblivious to the turmoil that had just erupted. He looked up, surprised to see the Human Resources Director standing in his doorway, an expression of grim determination on his face. "Is it true?" the director demanded without any preamble. "Is what true?" Ethan asked, confusion flooding his mind. The director strode into the room, slamming the door behind him with a force that made Ethan flinch. "Is it true that you and Clara have been carrying on an affair right here in the office?" As the director's words sank in, Ethan felt his heart drop. The director's piercing gaze indicated that the gravity of the situation was undeniable. "You have made a grave mistake. Do you even comprehend the fallout from your actions? We have significant clients who are religious organizations. How do you think they will react when they discover that 2 of our senior employees were engaging in inappropriate behavior on company property during working hours?" The director paused, allowing the weight of his words to hang in the air, his breathing heavy with anger. "I just left a meeting with senior management. The CEO is furious and has demanded proof. Calls are already pouring in from the Archbishop, the president of a Baptist charity, and Rabbi Cohen. This is a disaster." He glared at Ethan, the tension palpable. "You have 15 minutes to gather your things and leave this office. You are suspended pending an investigation. No, make that half an hour. And just so you know, Clara is being escorted out of the building as we speak. You both have brought shame upon this company. Let me know if this aligns better with what you're looking for, or check your email for the message from her husband," the director said, his voice cutting through the air as he turned to leave. Ethan's hands shook as he reached for his phone. What had begun as a fleeting secret had spiraled into a whirlwind of chaos that threatened to consume them both. He had envisioned their affair as a brief escape, a hidden thrill away from the prying eyes of the world. Yet, as their emotions deepened, they had made promises to each other, promises that their spouses would remain blissfully unaware of their betrayal. A chilling realization washed over him. Max, his wife, must be grappling with the fallout of this shocking revelation. "Oh my God, Max," he gasped, dialing her number in a panic. To his astonishment, she answered, her tone eerily calm. Maybe she hadn't seen the email yet? "Is it true?" she asked, her voice icy and devoid of emotion. "What's true, sweetheart?" Ethan replied, desperately trying to buy himself some time, aware that the walls were closing in. "Ethan, you have one chance to tell me the truth, just one. If you deny it and I catch you in a lie, our conversations will be handled by lawyers. So, is it true?" The gravity of her words hung in the air, squeezing his chest. He loved her, but he felt trapped, with no way out. "I'm so sorry, honey." "Yes, it's true," he confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. Before he could say anything more, she cut him off, her tone sharp and resolute. "I'm packing 2 suitcases with your favorite things. They'll be in the garage." The finality in her voice struck him like a blow, and he realized there would be no turning back. "Come get your things while I pick up the kids from school. I would do it myself, but at least one of us has to act like the responsible adult here, especially with the kids in the picture. For now, I'll tell them you had to leave for a business trip." Her voice was steady, but Ethan could sense the underlying pain. "Understand this. If I choose not to salvage our marriage, you will be the one explaining to our children why Dad doesn't live here anymore. They might not grasp it now, but in a few years they will. I hope this doesn't push them away from you." He could hear the resolve in her words. A protective shield formed around her heart. "I'm leaving now. Please don't try to reach out. If I decide to talk, I'll be the one to make contact." The silence that followed felt like an endless void, thick with unspoken words. Then, out of nowhere, a piercing scream shattered the stillness. "Damn you!" she shouted before abruptly hanging up. Ethan stared at his phone in disbelief, feeling as if he had been struck by lightning. He let the device slip from his fingers, his heart racing. Almost immediately, it rang again. The caller ID flashed Clara's name, and he hesitated before answering. For a moment, all he could hear were her muffled sobs, the sound of her anguish hitting him like a physical blow. "Ethan, Ethan, what are we going to do?" she cried, her voice trembling with despair. "He's my life. We were planning to start a family next year. I can't bear the thought of losing him. I can't." The weight of his despair pressed heavily on him for what felt like the 20th time that day. "What have we done?" he wondered aloud, his voice barely above a whisper. "I feel the same way about Sonny. But honestly, Clara, I can't see a happy ending for either of us. If we truly loved each other, we might embrace our freedom and be together. But the truth is, we liked each other. We never meant to build a future together." He took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. "You know, our careers are effectively over. If it's not happening now, it will be soon. Sonny has kicked me out, and I'm left questioning if we'll ever find our way back to each other. I genuinely feel for Oliver. Do you think talking to him, explaining that there was never any real love between us, would help?" "I'm willing to do that." "No," she replied firmly, her voice cutting through his thoughts. "The best thing for you right now is to keep as far away from us as possible. Every time he sees you, he will be reminded of what we did. He's never been violent, but this kind of hurt is new to him. I'll talk to you later, only if I think it's a good idea." She paused, and he could hear her breath hitch slightly before she continued. "No, actually, I don't think it's a good idea at all. If they discover that we're still in contact, it will undermine everything we're trying to rebuild. I'm sorry it has come to this, Clara. You know I never meant to hurt you." "I feel the same way," she sighed, the resignation in her voice echoing his own heartbreak. "I hope everything works out with Sonny. I know how much you love her." "It's hard to believe we were ever so foolish," Clara said softly. "Goodbye, Ethan. Good luck." With that finality in her tone, she hung up, leaving Ethan to grapple with his swirling thoughts and feelings. As she promised, Oliver never spoke to Clara again. He remained unyielding, refusing to negotiate or participate in the court-mandated counseling sessions. Instead, he chose to confront a contempt charge directly, showing up at the office to be served. The confused police officers took his statement, but without an arrest warrant. The judge expressed doubt about his actions yet decided to impose a sentence of weekends in jail, releasing him on Sunday nights just in time for work. Eventually, Clara chose to cancel the counseling sessions, admitting to herself that defeat had settled in. The divorce proceedings dragged on for nearly a year, a slow and painful process that wore down any remnants of hope she held for reconciliation. Despite her lingering feelings, Clara's world shifted when her mother spotted an announcement of Oliver's upcoming wedding. It was then that she truly let go, realizing the door to their past was permanently closed. On the day of Oliver's wedding, the weight of her emotions crashed down on Clara. For the first time in 2 years, she turned to alcohol to numb the pain. Time had not erased her wounds, but it had softened their edges, making them somewhat more bearable. As the months passed, Clara gradually began to date again, exploring new relationships. She entered 2 serious commitments, but neither lasted, her past remaining an unspoken shadow that loomed over her interactions. But finally, Clara met a man who loved her enough to leave the past behind and focus on the future. They got married, and happiness bloomed in their lives. Clara approached her interactions with other men cautiously, especially in the workplace. Her colleagues playfully dubbed her the nun because she rarely attended social gatherings and kept her conversations with men strictly professional. 2 years after her wedding, fate intervened when she unexpectedly ran into Oliver. He had left town after securing a confidential settlement with her former company, sidestepping a lengthy court battle. Now, he was back in town for his sister's 25th wedding anniversary celebration. Clara spotted him sitting alone on a park bench and hesitated for a moment, unsure if it was truly him. He looked different, thinner, with streaks of gray in his hair. She contemplated approaching him to finally offer an apology for her past actions but hesitated when she saw a tall woman with fiery red hair stride toward him, cradling a toddler boy and a girl who looked about 6 or 7 years old. The girl had red curls like her mother's, while the boy sported dark curls. In an instant, the girl leaped into Oliver's lap, and the woman took the younger child into her arms. Oliver stood up, holding the girl close, and leaned in to kiss the woman before they all walked away together. In that fleeting moment, Clara realized she had caught a glimpse of the future that was once meant for her. Tears welled up in her eyes as she wiped them away, feeling a bittersweet mix of nostalgia and acceptance wash over her. She returned home to prepare her husband's favorite dinner, reflecting on the journey they had both taken. After 15 months of separation, Ethan and Sunny managed to reconcile. Sunny had insisted on counseling, both individual and couples therapy, and they established a rigorous prenuptial agreement to ensure mutual commitment. Ethan poured out apologies, so many that Sunny eventually lost her patience. She warned him that one more apology would be the last straw. This ultimatum transformed Ethan. He became a different man, rarely straying far from Sunny's side. He embraced his role as a devoted family man, dedicating himself to their relationship and children. Though his new job paid less than his previous one, his hard work earned him raises and bonuses. It took him 6 long years to regain his footing, and Sunny continued working to make ends meet. Despite their reconciliation, she steadfastly refused to give up her job. She occasionally enjoyed nights out with colleagues or attended quarterly work seminars, and while her independence sometimes irked Ethan, it secretly pleased her. Their lives had shifted significantly from the past, but they were committed to building a brighter future together for themselves and their children. One day, as Ethan reflected on their intimacy, he realized that he and Clara had shared bed life only about 12 times, each encounter lasting an average of 30 to 45 minutes. Even with the longest estimates, that amounted to a mere 9 hours together. This realization struck him as a stark contrast to the years of suffering and the devastation of Clara's marriage. Was it worth it? Absolutely not.